type of year that you either sink or you swim, because it was a trial by fire, pretty much. Hello and welcome back. My name is Mariely Sanchez and I'm a 4th grade teacher in South Florida. I have been teaching for almost 18 years and I wanted to do a different type of video today. I know that I usually do weekly classroom vlogs and sometimes I do different teacher topics like shop with me videos or talking about different ideas or information in the classroom, but today I wanted to talk about my experience on my first year of teaching. So I wanted to sit back and make this like a story time kind of video and see if maybe information that I share in this video will be helpful to anyone that's thinking about teaching, any new teachers, any student teachers that are about to go into their first teaching position. So hopefully it informs you about my experience. Now remember, my experience is not the same for everyone. I just wanted to share it. And if you have any questions at any point during this video, make sure you leave your questions in the comments down below and I will do my best to get back to you. So my very first year teaching started in 2001. But before I can tell you about how my first year teaching went, I need to give you a background on my student teaching experience. So I started student teaching in August of 2000. And the way that our student teaching program worked when I was in school was that our university made a partnership with Miami-Dade County Public Schools where all the student teachers will work with the same class for a whole school year instead of just half of a school year. So I started working in a 1st grade class that was mostly ESOL students, so students that were learning to speak English. There were actually Hispanic and Haitian students in my classroom. And it was a 1st grade class with about 36 students. The first half of the year, from August to December up to winter break, I was what they call a paraprofessional level 3. And a paraprofessional is kind of like a teacher assistant. So I was able to observe the classroom, complete activities based on my observations, while at the same time helping the teacher with grading papers, organization, student work, etc. So when I came back from winter break, I slowly started to take over that same classroom. So I already had a relationship with the students, which made my student teaching experience different from a lot of teachers who just come into the classroom and they immediately start to take over the class. And as they're taking over the class, they start to build relationships with their students. I already had built relationships with my students, so I slowly started to take over the class. I probably took over, I don't remember exactly the order, but let's say I took over science first, and then the next week I was doing science and social studies, and the following week I was doing science, social studies, and math, until I was finally teaching all the subjects: science, social studies, math, reading, and language arts. So I took over as the teacher, and the teacher stayed in the classroom with me. She would do observations, she would give me feedback. My supervisor would come once a week to observe me doing a formal lesson that I would have to provide a lesson plan beforehand, and he will also give me feedback during those follow-up meetings after the lesson had taken place. So it was a really rewarding experience. Now, because I had some health issues during that semester where I was actually being the student teacher, I had to make up some days at the end of my student teaching so that I graduated, but I still had to make up some days. But during our final senior seminar, there was a recruiter from the district that was there, and she asked if anyone wanted a job right away to get in contact with her, and she would get us a job right away. So I gave her my information because I was excited. I wanted to start teaching. I wanted to get into a classroom and just start using and practicing everything that I had learned. So I immediately let her know that she got my information, and I went on the next week to continue those makeup days that I needed to do for student teaching. While I was student teaching, a principal called me. And since I was teaching, I didn't get the call until after school. She actually had called me, I believe, 2 times. So I gave her a call back, and she was actually surprised that I gave her a call because she said most people didn't return calls that came from her particular school. Since I was a new teacher, I didn't think much of it. I just wanted to get into a school and teach. And I went ahead and I interviewed with her. Our interview process was really great. I gave her my resume. She had my information from the district, from the recruiter. And I talked a little bit about myself. I talked about my philosophy of teaching, my classroom management style, and my experience in becoming a teacher. She immediately hired me as a 3100, which in my district is a temporary teaching position because the teacher that I was taking over had gone on maternity leave. And it actually ended up being a gifted math and science classroom. And I started working there as soon as I finished making up my student teaching days at my previous school. I worked there around the beginning of May of 2001. So I was a math and science teacher of the gifted for grades K through 5. And I did that for a month, and then the school year ended, and then the principal offered me a job, a permanent full-time position at the school. I came back the following school year in August 2001 as a 3rd grade teacher, teaching all the subjects, which was great. I was very excited. I had my own classroom. I immediately started thinking of a classroom theme, and this is before emojis were even a big thing. I don't even think we had smartphones. Actually, I know we didn't have smartphones back then. And I know I am dating myself right now, but I wanted to do a happy face theme in my classroom. So I remember going to Oriental Trading and purchasing these inflatable happy face balloons. I went to my local teacher store, Ace Educational Supplies, and I bought border that had happy faces. I wanted my classroom to represent a friendly environment for all of my students, and that's exactly what I ended up doing. I have to admit that ever since I started teaching, I always had some kind of theme in the decoration of my classroom, and I wish I had pictures of how my classroom looked then, and I'm pretty sure I do somewhere, but I have to tell you, this is before digital cameras were a thing. I think the first digital camera I bought was a year after, and it was this big, and it used a floppy disk to put in your pictures. I know, I am really dating myself now, but it's one of the ways that I love to decorate my classroom. I think of some kind of decoration theme, and then I go for it, and now I take pictures every year and I share them on Instagram. So if you don't follow me, I'm at Pencils and Magic Wands on Instagram, just so you know, just in case you were wondering. And basically, I started the year really excited. I had planned out my school year, and I was already thinking about how my classroom management was gonna be. I had the book, The First Days of School by Harry Wong, which is a very popular one. I read that thing the entire summer before I started working. I started purchasing different things that I knew I was gonna need for my classroom. I started thinking about the discipline plan, and because they had already given us a book called Assertive Discipline in one of our discipline classes, and I really liked it, I was going to implement one of the strategies in the book, and I was going forward. So I started working in the school, and it was a Title I urban school. And what Title I means, if you're not familiar, is that over 70% of the student population is either on free or reduced lunch. So these are students that come from a low socioeconomic background. And I was just very excited to start the school year and start to implement a lot of the things that I learned in my studies. Now, I have to tell you that I wasn't prepared fully for the type of behavior that I experienced in my classroom. I was never used to students rolling their eyes, throwing chairs, throwing themselves on the floor, pushing each other, getting into fights, being outright disrespectful to you. I was not used to that, and I didn't know how to best handle it. And I was a young teacher, and I looked pretty young myself. So it was a lot for me to handle. Like, I had these behaviors happening in my classroom, and I didn't know how to best address them. So the good thing is I did have teachers in my school that knew I was a new teacher. So there was one particular 3rd grade teacher who I still consider like my mentor, and she was teaching the same grade as I was, and she was a veteran teacher because she had done it for many years. And she like carried me under her, pretty much gave me some really great advice. She would meet with me, I would ask her questions, and that really helped me. The administration tried to help me as best as they could as well. They gave me some suggestions, but in all honesty, there were some suggestions that I felt like I had to kind of change who I was, and I wasn't very comfortable with that. For example, they told me, you look so young, maybe you should dress older. You know, do you have a pair of glasses? You should wear them. Don't leave your hair down. Put it up in a bun. You have to be very strict with these kids. You can't give them any leeway. And I did try that for a while. I do want to say that I did try, but I didn't feel comfortable doing that because I just felt that it wasn't me. So I kept doing trial and error, trying this and seeing if it would work, and then finding out that it wasn't working, so I had to try something else. And at one point, one of the administrators was very upset with my classroom management, and she said, well, you need to understand that you don't know everything. And I have to say, I never gave off the impression that I knew everything. And she made it seem like I wasn't listening to the other teachers who gave me suggestions, and I was listening to them, and I was trying it out. But the truth is, looking back, Just because one idea or strategy works with one teacher in one classroom doesn't mean that it's going to work with another teacher in a different classroom. I have even learned from year to year that some of the strategies that I may use with one class this year may not necessarily work with my class the next year. So I always have to find that you have to kind of do trial and errors and see what will work. But as a new teacher, the thing is that school doesn't fully prepare you for everything that you will encounter when you're in the classroom. I know that I heard this as a new teacher, that I will learn as I go and experience will be the best teacher. And I don't know about you, but sometimes I just want things like now. Like I want to know everything that I need to know in order to teach my students the best way. I don't want to wait 5-10 years to learn those strategies. I want to know them now. But in reality, you are only going to learn as the years go by. You are not going to be an expert the very first year that you teach. And you are not going to be an expert maybe in 2 years or 3 years or 4 years. Well, while you're at it, I'm about to enter my 18th year of teaching and I still don't know everything. Now, I have learned to master certain areas, but I am still a learner. I am still growing. And that is very important as a teacher, to still grow, to still keep an open mind, even if you still have all these years of experience. I still learn from new teachers that come into my team. And right now, I'm the grade level chair for the whole entire 4th grade team. And I learn from the new teachers that are on my team. And I welcome anything that other teachers, give me as ideas. And I would love to try it in my classroom and find ways that I can adapt it to my students' needs. So that was a very, very tough year as far as behavior management went, and me learning the best way to deal with the behaviors that were going on in my classroom. And what I learned, and it took me a while to learn, and I want to say months to learn this, I learned to first set my rules, set my expectations, show the students what those expectations are, model those expectations, and then in the process, build relationships with my students. Building relationships was key to my success towards the latter half of my first year of teaching. I had to let these students know that I was interested in them. I wasn't just any other person that they were going to have as a teacher and did not care what they went through. I needed to let them know that I saw them, that I heard them, and that I did care about whether or not they were coming to school, about whether or not they were feeling happy or sad or angry. I let them know that. And also when they gave me those rude behaviors, I learned to not let it get to me, and I learned to not take things personal. Because my first year of teaching, and this is just the person that I was, I wanted to please everyone. I wanted my students to like me, and I don't think I am guilty of that. I think there's a lot of teachers out there that would love for your students to like you, but the truth is that whether or not they liked me, I learned now that, yeah, I would love for my students to like me, but I'm not there for them to like me. I am there to teach them, to, help them grow as people. So yeah, if they like me, that's a plus. But if they don't like me, I learned halfway through my first year of teaching that I couldn't let students rolling their eyes at me get to me. I couldn't let them, when they said something disrespectful to me, I couldn't let it get to me. I needed to show them that I don't care what you say to me. Like, seriously, I'm just here to teach you. Let's get to it. I learned very quickly that I needed to be invested in who these students were and be consistent in my classroom management. So I know that my first year was not the best, but I tried my best. And one of my turning points was that I actually ended up reading the book Miss Nelson is Missing. And Miss Nelson is Missing is basically about a teacher whose class was going crazy with behavior and she didn't know how to handle their behavior. So she decided to take a day off and pretend that she was the sub. Basically, you don't find out that she is the sub until the end of the story when they show you kind of a glimpse of her closet, and in the closet is Elvira Swamp's costume. But the students had this horrible sub when the teacher wasn't there, and the sub was super, super strict and was like not allowing any misbehavior in the classroom, to the point that when the teacher came back, the students appreciated her more. So I read that. I remember reading that book to the students, and after I finished reading the book, I go, the old Miss Sanchez, like Miss Nelson, is gone. What you're getting now is an Elvira Swamp type of Miss Sanchez. I am not taking any more of this misbehavior. I will not tolerate it, and we will handle it as it happens. So there was a turning point. The students knew that I meant it. And like many students now know, I can be nice and fun and we can have a great time. But the moment you cross the line of my rules and my expectations, that's when I turn like the Hulk. Not literally, but I get super serious with them and strict, and I show them, no, this is business. You are not going to behave like this. But that's something that I've learned in time. Other than dealing with a new school, an urban school that was a Title I school with all the misbehavior that I was getting and trying to find a way to get my students to behave, I also found out in the first quarter of a year that I was pregnant. So yes, my first year teaching, I was actually pregnant for the first time as well. I found out in October. I didn't tell my students and my administration until after we came back from winter break. So as you can already imagine, my first year teaching was a very stressful year. I was a new teacher. I was dealing with really ridiculous behavior, disrespect. I was trying to juggle what was the best way to handle classroom management and behavior management while at the same time being pregnant. So it was really a lot for me that year, but I can honestly tell you that after Christmas, when we came back from break and the students saw that I meant business and they found out that I was pregnant and they saw that I cared for them and I started building those relationships, there was a turn in how my students behaved. I was actually able to teach lessons because their behaviors were under control. We became a family. And a family that was there for each other and looked out for each other. Now I have to say, they did not respect anybody else in the school, but they respected me. I mean, there was one point in that year that the school counselor came to me and basically told me, I don't like your class. They are the worst class in the entire school. I don't know how you do it. And in my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is a school counselor. And she's telling me this. But you know what? At least they respect me. As long as they respect me, and I can get my lessons done and they're learning, I'm good. So that was a really interesting year of growth because that's the type of year that you either sink or you swim, because it was a trial by fire pretty much. But I made it through and I learned a lot of valuable lessons, and I do want to share those lessons with you. If you are a new teacher or someone who's about to go into teaching, these are some tips that I have for you. My biggest takeaway from my first year of teaching was the importance of building relationships with the students. The students needed to understand that I did legitimately care for them and I was there for them and I wanted to support them in any way that I could as their teacher. Another takeaway is that you can try ideas that other teachers give you, but don't be so hard on yourself if those ideas don't work out for you. Because like I previously mentioned, just because it works in one classroom doesn't mean that it will work in another classroom. Consistency is so important. You must be consistent. If you say that these are the rules, you have to implement them and keep them and be consistent with them. If you say these are the consequences, be consistent with your consequences. Consistency is still something that I am trying to master, even after almost 18 years of teaching. But consistency is so important, and being consistent will help drive your classroom management a lot more easily. It's so important to collaborate with other teachers, especially as a new teacher. Don't feel like you're alone. Don't keep to yourself in your classroom. Just go out and speak to other teachers in your grade level or grade level below you or above you, and just collaborate, share ideas, ask questions, learn from each other. That is so, so vital and important. Be kind to yourself, because you are gonna have days where you're crying all the way to work, or you're crying on your way home, or you're crying sometime in the school day. It's going to happen. Be kind to yourself, let yourself feel, and then do some self-care. So important. Your undergraduate work, or graduate work if you went to undergrad and then graduate, is not gonna fully prepare you for what you will experience in the classroom. As I mentioned before, experience will help you learn how to best teach your students, how to best do classroom management. And just know that the university will not be able to fully equip you with everything that you need. It will give you like a general information or idea of what you're going to experience, but it's not gonna completely prepare you, and that's okay. So just be prepared for that. Don't be afraid to keep trying strategies until you find one that works best with your students, and also be flexible, because one strategy may work with one class one year, but the next year it may not work and you may have to tweak it. It's so important to make time for you. One of the mistakes I made during my first year of teaching was that I dreamt about school, thought about school every single day, including weekends, went home and thought about school some more, went on the computer and researched things for school. I was just all about school. It's important to disconnect from school. Yes, you are a teacher, but that's not the only thing that you are. You're also a person that needs to take care of yourself. So make sure you give yourself time to disconnect from school and do some self-care and do some things that are fun for you. Another thing that is important for you to do is to have some kind of journal or a reflection or a place where you can reflect on what happened in the day, what happened in the month, what happened at the end of the year. You don't have to be super consistent with this, but it's important to write down what happened in your classroom, what's going on, reflect on what worked, what didn't work, and how you can address what didn't work and how you can keep what worked. I definitely did that at the end of the year. I actually ended the year before the school year ended. I gave birth to my son a few days before the end of the school year, actually the week before the school year ended. And I am so thankful for my grade level because they helped me finish the grading and the grades for the students while I was in the hospital delivering my baby. So one thing that I did end up doing after that year was I sat down and I reflected on everything that I had done, all the things that worked and all the things that didn't work and how I can improve them. I spent time in the summer going to the proteacher.net website when I went on different collaborative boards where teachers would post questions and answer each other's questions and learn from other teachers about different ways that I could address the behavior issues that were happening in my classroom. But that's basically my biggest takeaway from my first year teaching experience. And I hope that it was valuable and informational to you, that you were able to learn something from it. And like I said before, if you have any questions, don't forget to just leave them down in the comments below and I will get back to you. All right, so that was my story time, my first year of teaching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to hit the like button, leave a comment down below like I said. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing and also hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss any future videos. Have a beautiful, magical day and don't forget to smile.